As if they don't have too much on their plates. The Kings of Combat Sports Podcast, John and Wade. They'll talk about the things they did that day. They'll analyze the work of Vince and Triple H. Rewind to SmackDown. 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 Rewind to SmackDown.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Rewind to SmackDown. I'm John Pollock alongside Wei Ting, coming out of tonight's very eventful show from Memphis, Tennessee. How are you, Wei?
Doing pretty well. Yeah, eventful.
Very eventful. I thought tonight's show moved really quick. They had lots of ideas on the show. That SummerSlam card is growing by the segment. We are now at 10 matches, probably an 11th if you want to throw in Roman Reigns now for a singles match, taking on the production team.
Taking on some poor intern.
Yeah, that's they set up. Maybe he's gonna just be like that. The scene you'd get in Street Fighter where you have to like attack a car or something. Like he's gonna face the production set in Toronto.
Oh wow, like an actual match
Yes.
with the set. Okay.
I mean, they got the heat tonight. The set literally went over tonight.
You know what? I think it was the Invisible Man. Or Invisible Stan, most likely.
That would be great.
Imagine that match. Like Roman trying to work that match.
It'd be fun. Who on the roster do you think would be the most equipped to do a match against Invisible Stan?
I think Daniel Bryan would probably
Daniel
be great
Bryan
at
is
it.
he'd be up there. I would imagine that there'd be some really good ones actually in NXT maybe. I'd want Mauro Ranallo to call it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it requires somebody who not only, has a great physical ability, but also somebody with a great comedic timing and sense as well. So in the WWE, I'm trying to think who else would kind of fit that.
I think you would need Bryce Remsburg though as the referee, regardless.
Maybe, yeah.
And he's not available.
Mauro calling it would be really fun.
I'm just imagining it right now.
Man, do you think AEW will ever sign the Invisible Man?
I don't feel they're gonna go that route.
No.
I mean, maybe one day they will. But
Maybe for the
don't see it
buy-in
happen.
only.
Yeah. I don't know if Jim Ross would be calling that one.
Probably not.
Well, we have a lot to talk about on tonight's show. Packed edition of SmackDown. We also have some news to get into. And I want to make mention because we have just put up our latest G1 show. And Wei, your overall thoughts on today's A Block show.
I thought it was not necessarily one of the better A Block shows. You might disagree, John, but I really enjoyed the main event. To me, most of the other matches were good, but not standouts.
I was really a big fan of the Zack Sabre Jr. Will Ospreay match. I thought it was among the better matches of the tournament so far. That was my match of the day. And as we go through pretty extensively on the show today, we now are getting a bunch of eliminations, in particular in the A Block, where half of the field has now been eliminated because Kazuchika Okada defeated Lance Archer today, and that was a mild upset, I would say, because I was looking at...
Spoiler alert.
That is not a spoiler at this hour. Come on. So anyway, Okada is still undefeated, and yeah, a bunch of people are now eliminated, so you can get all caught up to date on our G1 show.
Yeah. Please enjoy that as well on our Patreon feed. Tomorrow is our latest edition of Ask Away as well. So you get all that by becoming a member of the Post Wrestling Cafe.
Well, if you're a member of the Post Wrestling Cafe, you get something extra on Tuesday nights, and that is our draw to give out a Post Wrestling prize pack exclusively from the Post Wrestling store. Current sale going on throughout the G1, 20% off of everything. But tonight, the winner gets 100% off of everything.
That's right. Yeah, 20% off for all patrons for the remainder of our G1 coverage. So that's about 2 more weeks. But yeah, for now, we're going to give something away. So, John, will you do the honors?
All right. We are reaching down deep to choose the winner. Our winner is named.
Oh, fuck. I fucked this up. All right.
Oh, dear.
Congratulations to K Salongsong from, wow,
Far?
pretty far. I don't even know the name of this country. But
Can you spell it out?
I don't even know which part of the address is the country here. But Kay is somebody who I know is a longtime listener, so I will have no issue getting this out there. I think this is the Philippines. Damn.
Oh wow,
Damn, that's cool.
This is not going to be a door-to-door delivery for you.
Maybe not this one, unless no, I don't think so. I don't think I'll be making it in time. But wow, our first a winner in the Philippines. That's awesome.
Wow. Well, congratulations. You are the proud owner of a brand new post-wrestling prize pack. So if you want to go check out some of our great merchandise, you can go to store.postwrestling.com. A great sale for another 13 days until the G1 wraps up.
Yes, that's right.
I can't believe we're almost near the end of this G1 way. We're getting there. We're past the midway point. We are now getting into some eliminations, and we're kind of in that deep period right now. We're not towards the final couple of nights yet, or even the final week, but we're slowly getting there. The Osaka shows are always a big point of the tournament. Those are coming up this weekend, but you can now start to sense the mirage that is off into the distance. It's starting to form something.
Yeah, I think so, but still quite unpredictable, I would say.
All right. Shall we discuss what is coming up this week?
Yeah, we can keep it a bit brief. I think people already kind of get it. Oh, before we even do that, I want to make a note that some of you may have noticed your downloads being a little bit speedier. This has been a known issue that we've been trying to fix for a long, long time, and I'm pleased to announce that I think we have finally come up with a solution. We've been in the process of moving our entire feeds from one provider to a different provider, and all your speeds should be way faster now. So hopefully you downloaded this show without any issue. If you have issues, please let me know, and we'll perhaps try to get to the bottom of it. But for the most part, I think all of you guys should be fine. If not, maybe try resubscribing to your feeds and trying all that out. But things should be good.
And I think everyone owes a big thank you to Wei Ting, who has worked tirelessly on this big switch. Not only is he asking the probing questions that are circulating throughout the wrestling news world, but he is also making sure everyone gets their post-wrestling shows in a timely fashion. Wei, you are the MVP this week.
That was all in a day's work.
Were you surprised at the circulation your question generated on Tuesday? It was everywhere.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Sports Illustrated picked it up. I mean, it was, I guess, somewhat interesting, but not that surprising. It was an interesting clip. If our audience finds it interesting, I'm sure the world would.
Well, you can go listen to that. We actually isolated the clip. If you go to youtube.com/postwrestling or just go to postwrestling.com itself, you can hear the clip for yourself. And Becky Lynch's reaction to being paired with her boyfriend, Seth Rollins. If you're not aware, they're dating.
I had no idea. Yeah.
Yes, it's true. Cat's out of the bag. All right. Just some highlights this week. Of course, we have the G1 shows. They will continue with shows on Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday up on the Post Wrestling Café. We'll also have Ask Away out Wednesday for Café members. And then up next on Thursday, Rich Craich will join us on the Café Hangout Thursday at 3 o'clock Eastern Time. And then we have 2 editions of Cruel Summer coming up this weekend, as WH Park is going to be chatting 2009 and 2010 this weekend with Mike Murray on Saturday and Striga on Sunday. So some great stuff coming your way if you are a post-wrestling fan.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Great news.
All right, let's chat about some of the news. We had our bounce back for WWE Raw this week, doing 2,321,000 viewers. And this was obviously going to be much lower than we saw last week with the Raw reunion. So I wouldn't even compare it to that. But it was down just over 5% from 2 weeks ago. And it was kind of a strange breakdown here. It was their lowest number since the end of June. But their first hour was actually pretty good. It was their highest first hour since May 27th. So they had a good start. It just didn't have a giant decline throughout the show, but the overall average was it was their lowest of July. So not a great number, but at least there was some silver lining to it, that there was interest at the start of the show. But
do you have any?
I don't know, because I thought this was a show that moved fairly well, that if you were one of those 2.4 million that tuned in at the first hour, I think that the show moved at a pretty good pace, that I wouldn't have been turned off by anything. And it's not like it was a gigantic decrease. It fell 3.5% in the second hour and fell 4% in the third hour. So we're not talking gigantic tune-out factors. But there wasn't a whole lot going into this show that necessarily was hyped. There was nothing coming off the Raw reunion that would have sent you back here. There was nothing on SmackDown that really targeted you towards Raw. It was the announcement that Seth Rollins is going to take on Dolph Ziggler, and Becky Lynch is taking on Alexa Bliss, and I don't think anyone is making a appointment viewing for those announcements ahead of time. So I think maybe it was just one of those weeks where maybe some people tuned in last week, they got their fill, and they weren't coming back this week.
Perhaps, yeah. Lack of a hook, lack of a mystery, perhaps.
So we will see how much this week. On the other hand, I thought on Raw and SmackDown they did. On Raw, we had like the big injury angle with Seth Rollins and kind of the big brawl at the end of the show, which I think naturally segues into some kind of match for next week. And then tonight, you had a big cliffhanger with Roman Reigns. So two angles that seem designed to bring viewers back next week to get answers to. So do you feel that will kind of give things a spike, also being the go-home shows for SummerSlam?
I'm not sure how much intrigue there might be in finding out like the whodunit aspect, but then again, like I didn't think there was all that much intrigue to the Daniel Bryan announcement, and it's been speculated that might have at least made a bit of a difference that particular week. I have no idea, honestly. These things are like really tough to predict, so I'm not even going to offer.
Other news coming out today, we have the WWE is promoting their SummerSlam stuff, and lo and behold, the kickoff showway is listed for a 6 p.m. Eastern start time, and the main show at 7, which, if I do my math correctly, would mean half of the kickoff show has been slashed. We're only going to get a 1-hour kickoff show.
Wonderful. Yeah, I mean, a kickoff show should really be a preview, and I think 2 hours is not much of a preview at that point. That's really substantial. And not to mention it would exhaust your audience. So is this a sign that they recognize that these shows are too long and that they're going to be a lot more conservative with the length of these shows, in particular, the big pillar shows like WrestleMania or SummerSlam? I hope so. Let's see.
Yeah, and I mean, they seem to be booking this still to be one of those monstrous shows. It just seems they're going to have one less hour to work with. I mean, if you include Roman Reigns, we've got 11 matches, and every single match is a singles match so far. So I'm expecting more when you figure that. I mean, look at who's unaccounted for so far. Both sets of Raw tag champions. I don't know if we'll get a cruiserweight title match in there. There's Daniel Bryan. There's Samoa Joe. There's a bunch of other names. They're teasing Ali and Shinsuke Nakamura. That could be another match attached onto this. So when all is said and done, this could be a 14, 15 match show.
Oh my God.
And I wonder if they're going to make it up on the back end, that if they have all these matches, maybe the show's going to go longer than we expect because they're cutting off the kickoff show. And I mean, these are a lot of matches still.
Yeah. The more the card grows, I think the more daunting it appears. At no point do I feel like the more matches that they cram in, that a member of the audience feels like they're getting more value out of it. If anything, to me, I feel like it's more of a deterrent for people to not watch the show because it's going to be so long, or at least tune in maybe partially, partway through, or even after the fact.
I do like the card so far. I think that they've added
cut it off here. I'm good.
Yeah, I would be happy if this was SummerSlam. Like, name Roman Reigns' opponent, and then this is an 11-match show. I don't need a cruiserweight title match. I don't even need the tag title match, to be honest. No. That's a nice addition, but man, we get pay-per-views every month. You could squeeze in a tag title match if you want, just to break things up, but I'm good with 11 matches, and this is like, it's a good card here. I don't want to see so many matches that an AJ Ricochet or pick your match here that is going to inevitably get cut on time. Like Sami Zayn and Aleister Black, are they going to get more than 6-7 minutes? Probably not when all is said and done.
Yeah.
All Elite Wrestling, they have signed Marko Stunt to a contract. I guess this does not come to a surprise given his affiliation now with Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy. But what an interesting story with this guy who got booked on SummerSlam weekend last year onto the Game Changer Wrestling show. Does that match with Kyle the Beast and is just the buzz of the indie world coming out of that weekend. Gets booked onto All In, and here a year later, he's signed to a big national promotion. I mean, all this happens within a year, and he, to me, is kind of front and center the example of Game Changer Wrestling, taking undiscovered independent talent and making them these overnight sensations, and they've done it with numerous guys over the past year.
Yeah, and I would maybe go as far as to say perhaps, AEW might be taking a good chunk of its playbook from seeing what moves GCW has done, or at least looking towards members of that roster as, prime candidates to pick like undiscovered talent to feature on a national stage. It's great news for Marko Stunt. I'm curious to know, how he would function on a more national scale. I think the potential is great for like his character and his story to be told on a wider stage. We'll see how they do it. It seems like he's going to be a part of the Jungle Boy Luchasaurus team, which seems to already be proven to be one of their more popular babyface teams. Yeah, I'm for it.
That to me is like the hidden value of signing a Joey Janela, is that I don't know how many more people have like their finger on the pulse of that independent scene, more so than Joey Janela. Like he would be on that short list for me, and I think that's you're bringing in somebody that, I mean, to me has a lot more value than just simply being an on-screen wrestler.
What do you think will happen? What with GCW then? Will they have access to all these guys?
That's going to be
because
Janela
is promoting like his last match or something, right? Like his last GCW appearance.
Yeah, the curtain call they're promoting. Yeah, so that like they're very much teasing like his send off. Like he is, he's mentioned that his full-time contract begins in the fall, as do it seems most of these guys. So it sounds like they're going to be, if not greatly reduced, like not doing outside dates once the weekly TV is on.
So is that the end of spring break?
Unless it's, I mean, they've already booked a venue for next year's show, so they're doing the show. It's just a question of whether it's going to be Joey Janela's show or not, and if he'd get an exemption to be able to go do that WrestleMania weekend. Maybe he will.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like each contract is structured differently. Like guys have outside interests. It's not as though everyone is going to be it just seems like Kenny Omega, for instance, he's allowed to do New Japan Pro Wrestling. So I think each contract is probably a unique one for the individual.
Well, what do you think of Joey Janela doing the spring break idea under the AEW banner?
I don't know. It kind of feels like a weird thing to take the concept from the promotion that's kind of, granted he's been part of that. I don't see them doing that.
Yeah, I don't see it either. Like we just talked about, like, the Invisible Man, and I feel like AEW at this point would really just be inviting a whole lot of criticism from people who just, that type of wrestling and that type of comedy is really just not for them.
WWE Studios and Netflix have announced a new sitcom comedy starring The Big Show, and this will be called The Big Show Show.
The Big Show Show. Okay.
The Big Show Show. It begins filming next week in Los Angeles, 10 half-hour episodes, and here's the premise, Way. You tell me if you're going to be holding on to Netflix for this series to drop. When the teenage daughter of Big Show, a retired world-famous WWE superstar, comes to live with him, his wife, and two other daughters, he quickly becomes outnumbered and outsmarted. Despite being 7 feet tall and weighing 400 pounds, he is no longer the center of attention.
Well, Netflix has a very high standard of quality that it seems to uphold, and the fact that they decided to greenlight this is a bit surprising, of all the possible, I think, wrestling, WWE Studios even related projects, this being the one that interested them. I don't know if I'm that interested, just based off of that description, but maybe I'll watch the first episode.
I think Paul White has a lot of great comedic timing. I'm curious to see how he transcends into a sitcom environment. It's very different from other roles he's had. But
haven't you seen his movie? What was it, Knucklehead?
Oh yeah, I did see Knucklehead. Yeah,
well, that was terrible.
That was awful. I'm hoping he's in better hands this time. So this is going to be a co-production with WWE Studios and Netflix. And I guess with Netflix right now, I think they're throwing a lot of stuff against the wall right now because you're seeing so many just different studios now that rather than releasing their content and licensing it out, they want to start their own streaming services. And that's, pretty much the impetus behind Disney Plus and Netflix now probably just trying to, they are going to live and die based on their original content and not so much relying on licensing outside content. And this is probably a natural partnership is, hey, WWE Studios that has access to all these potential subscribers for us. And why not? It's a test.
Yeah, and it seems like there's at least some distinction between perhaps, WWE Studios fictitious production and in-ring, pro wrestling content that they create exclusively for their own streaming platform. So do you think this might open the door for more wrestling content on Netflix, or do you see them just separating the two?
I see this being, I think at most it would be utilizing WWE performers into certain vehicles and stuff like that. I'm not imagining much wrestling content on Netflix, although that's clearly the direction WWE Studios is trying to go. It's partnering with Netflix, partnering with that new service, Quibbly, that are doing that, the series that they've just announced, Fight Like a Girl or something like that. They've also announced, the HBO partnerships. I think that's what they're looking for, is to partner and do some wrestling content and then other stuff like this. Elsewhere, that's all I've got here. Is there anything else you wanted to discuss before we go on to SmackDown?
Not so much.
Well, tonight's show is in Memphis at the FedEx Forum. And Wade, do you want to try and retrace our steps over the last week of what was announced for SmackDown over the last week and what happened tonight?
No, I have no idea. I don't even know what was really announced today. So please.
Okay, well, here's the genesis of where SmackDown went. We had over the weekend the announcement that Finn Balor would take on Dolph Ziggler. That occurred. We also had Big E and Xavier Woods set to take on Drew McIntyre and Elias in a non-title match. Then today that changed to a 6-man tag with the New Day versus the OC in a battle of all champions. And then 3 hours before the show went to air, they announced that it is now Kofi Kingston taking on AJ Styles in a singles match with New Day and Anderson and Gallows in their corners.
Yeah, I mean, seeing how the show eventually turned out, I guess I'm not exactly sure why the main event needed to be changed from that to this.
I was kind of surprised that they put together a match where Styles had to take a clean fall, as opposed to just doing the 6-man and, Woods or Gallows or someone could take the fall instead. Yeah, I didn't see why it had to be the singles match over the 6-man, other than that's what they decided to do. And we also did not get the big women's non-title title match with the Iconics against Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville. Now, they did shoot a segment to address this. They put it up on WWE.com, but obviously this was just scrapped from the show. The Iconics are with Sarah Schreiber, and they explained that Billie Kay has come down with puppy fever from exposure to Peyton Royce's Doberman. So Rose and Deville show up and confront them. Royce accuses them of slander when they insinuate that they're ducking the match. And then Paige shows up with the Kabuki Warriors and says, hey, we deserved a shot after we beat you by countout. And then Mandy Rose went behind our back to Shane McMahon to try and leapfrog us. And the Iconics just took off as the others just argued. So we have all these 3 teams that are feuding and 2 sets of teams that want the title shot. And this is what they did in the parking lot of the FedEx Forum.
Okay, puppy fever was the reason.
Puppy fever, yes.
This match was canceled. Okay. Well, I'm glad to see the Kabuki Warriors are still involved in the mix. Whenever someday these teams have their match, maybe it'll be great. Do you see this getting on SummerSlam?
I would say no. I imagine this being TV stuff.
Yeah.
This card looks so full. I don't think this needs to be occupying another spot.
Mm-hmm.
Shane McMahon started the show on his phone, and he announced that he is not going to be at the show tonight, and he blames Kevin Owens and said that he had a meeting with his life coach who told him he needs to focus, and he realizes he has what he wants with Kevin Owens at SummerSlam, and now his aura and glow are back. He's going to end Owens' career, and Kevin is going to have to tell Shane he is the better man right before he quits at SummerSlam. And I thought Shane was pretty great here and incorporating the use of a life coach.
Incorporating the use of a portrait mode selfie promo.
He's
TV.
A heel.
Yeah. I think when he's not wrestling, he, to me, is a really fun heel to watch. I think he hits the right tone of like authoritative, but blissfully lacking in self-awareness to the point of like delusion. I really liked him when he was in the feud against The Miz, but unfortunately it was against The Miz and you can only go so far with him. And also The Miz basically lost every match in that feud. But I think Owens has way more upside. So far, like with a strong heel in Shane, and I think a strong babyface in Kevin Owens, to me, this is all working. Let's hope that, Owens' in-ring performances are he fares a bit better than The Miz. Well, who do you think this life coach is?
Ito Portal.
Well, they made reference to the life coach like way too much on this particular show between Shane and Owens that I feel like they are trying to build and set up some type of character.
Could be some character at SummerSlam. Maybe it'll be Henzo Gracie.
Yeah. Or Phil Nurse. They're not life coach though.
Henzo Gracie could be anything.
Yeah.
Anyway. I thought this was a good promo, and it really feels like they are setting this up for the payoff of Shane disappearing from television. And it's also interesting the fact that Baron Corbin and Lacey Evans have been noticeably absent from television. Like they don't look to be figured into SummerSlam at all.
Yeah, I think people are in need of a break from them, and I think the WWE clearly senses that. So, let them have that break.
I can see Baron coming back and having a reduced role, not being in the main event. I think that would be a positive. I'm very curious with Lacey Evans. I think that she is someone that just needs more time. I think was just radically overpushed, and I'm kind of curious what their next move with her is. If it's just maybe wait till after SummerSlam, bring her back, and in what capacity do they bring her in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think if there was like a secondary women's belt, she would be in prime position to compete for something like that. But I don't really want to see her in the world title mix either on Raw or on SmackDown. I certainly don't mind them cycling talents out, especially ones that I feel maybe weren't as well received by the audience.
It's not the worst idea. Like trying to just having it's fine to do these cycling. Like, okay, we've got a 4-week build to the next pay-per-view. You're not figured into this one, but you'll be figured into the one after that. And it's not just the same rotation of talent every single month. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Mm-hmm. Kevin Owens comes out and he's all teared up. His voice is cracking that no one should panic that Shane isn't here. They're going to get through it okay. And maybe SmackDown can be about the talent tonight and not your stupid face. And he may be at peace with whatever crap his life coach is telling him, but Kevin Owens is not going to quit. He's going to beat Shane, and he's going to beat him so badly that every time he looks in the mirror, he will know that he does not belong in the ring with people like him. I thought this was a great promo. We didn't need any witty jokes. We didn't need any punchlines. It was, I'm coming to Toronto to beat the shit out of you. And that's it.
I liked it too. They are just really they're giving him the ball right now. He feels like he is.
He's getting over too. Like he is, the audience is behind this guy.
He feels like he's in position to be the top babyface on SmackDown. And I even classify that him over Kofi and even Roman with the way that with the amount of TV time he's been receiving. And I think the type of build that he's getting, he feels like a lot more serious. And it's not going to be Austin. It's not even going to be Becky. but I think he's getting positive reactions, and he's doing good with promos like this.
And what does it say about that the big singles match with Shane, if they go through with it, that it's Owens that gets the big win and sends Shane away for some time? I know that's not the stipulation, but I could definitely see Shane like disappearing after SummerSlam rather than Reigns. Like, this was really tailor-made to be Reigns' program, the way they had built this, and Reigns even losing to Shane at the Saudi Arabia show.
Yeah, that's right. And I wonder how much of that was part of the plans when that Reigns program was initially set, who knows? But I think part of that was because people are just pretty exhausted with Reigns and Shane. They never really kind of culminated that with a Reigns win because it didn't feel like it was worth continuing, quite frankly. So maybe giving that to Owens will freshen up both characters, will freshen up Roman as well, while elevating Kevin Owens.
Yeah, I just find it really interesting, the handling of it, that even at, what was the last pay-per-view, Extreme Rules, that they didn't even have Reigns get his pin back on Shane because, well, Shane's going to have one big loss and it should be at SummerSlam, and instead it was Taker. Who did Taker pin in that match? Did he pin Shane?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so Shane got beat as opposed to Reigns. Mm-hmm. That is kind of puzzling when you think about it.
When you think about it, and I think they count on most people not thinking about it and just basically ignoring it and moving on.
He says this is not Shane's ring or Shane's show, it's the Kevin Owens show, and that prompts Drew McIntyre to come out, telling Owens he talks too much, and announces that they're going to have a match tonight, nails him with the microphone, sends him over the desk on the floor, and reveals that the match is now. So we come back from break, and these two ended up having, I thought, like a really strong match here on television. Mm-hmm. Drew is controlling until he gets run into the shoulder into the post. Owens hits him with a cannonball. They went through a commercial break. They return. Owens headbutts him off the turnbuckle and lands a swanton. Audience is behind Owens. He goes for the stunner, but gets dropped with the Glasgow kiss. And then as he's setting up for the Claymore, Owens cuts him off with a super kick. The pop-up powerbomb gets blocked, but then he hits it on the second try for a near fall. McIntyre responds, hits a white noise off the second turnbuckle for a 2 count. They go to the floor. The desk gets cleared. Owens is pulled up onto the desk and hits Drew with a stunner on the desk. They go into the ring, super kick, stunner, and Kevin Owens pins Drew McIntyre clean. And I thought this was a really good television match.
I like the match too. They delivered something that felt substantial in ring. Again, the commercial break makes it feel, the lack of reset after commercial makes it feel like this was a lot more substantial than what we saw previous weeks. We saw some really big moves, some really good kickouts. This was a huge win for Kevin Owens. It's not just a win over an Elias or something like that. At one time, Drew McIntyre seemed to be one of their most protected projects. So this shows that they're very serious about Owens. But on Drew, I think Drew is fantastic. Man, though, like over the past several months as a sidekick to Shane in all of these Shane-centric programs, he's been a real afterthought to the point where even him taking a loss clean here to Kevin Owens, I didn't really think twice about it. I thought it was a logical move because he is the setup man for Shane McMahon. So maybe it's just a bit of a comment on where Drew McIntyre is lately. But I like the segment. I think Kevin Owens continues to really, feel like a strong character.
You know what I liked about this show a lot? Apart from the Finn Balor-Dolph Ziggler match that had the lights go out and everything, clean finishes on this show pretty much.
Great, yeah. I mean, a lot of these guys need it.
Do you think that Drew and Cedric get a spot at SummerSlam? I mean, that seems crazy to think Drew would be on the bubble for SummerSlam as of a few weeks ago, but now that we're 2 weeks out, do you see that match being another singles match on the show, or Drew being thrown into something else?
I do think they will probably put it on the show. It can be, man, it's such a bloated card at this point.
And this card does not need more singles matches. I mean, it just seems like they're teasing so much now that you could add. And I don't know if you're going to come up with a match that is just one of those matches to get a bunch of bodies into the ring at once, but I don't like that for Drew either.
See, they already do that for WrestleMania, and I understand, like, okay, everybody wants to be on WrestleMania, so they have to come up with the reasons for it, but come on. SummerSlam, like, I know everybody wants to be on SummerSlam as well, but I think we can be a bit more, like picky about who we put on SummerSlam. It's not going to ruin your year to not be on SummerSlam.
I always thought it made the event so much more prestigious when you had a big WrestleMania or a big SummerSlam, and it was only like 8 matches, and it was like a big thing to have a spot on the show as opposed to every single person gets onto the show. And it feels more special when it's like, it's your select few, the best of the best that get onto the big show. And I think it makes the event feel more important when it's like it's not everyone gets onto the show.
Well, look at what they do with takeovers.
Yes,
they're
not
only
everyone gets onto those. It's 5 matches.
Yeah, they're only like 15 spots open on Takeover, and I'm sure a lot of people in the Performance Center feel really bad that they're not getting on. But when you do get on, you perform at your best, and every single time somebody gets on that show, as a viewer, I know that they're going to give their best because it's a rarity that they might be even on this show. So I much prefer something like that, and the shows are like always amazing. So I think that should really tell them something.
Kayla Braxton interviewed Dolph Ziggler. They replayed the super kick to Shawn Michaels, and Ziggler's got 2 words for you. Too bad. And he went into a procession of insults over the legends. He insulted Mick Foley, who got decimated by the Fiend because he didn't belong there. He ran down Bill Goldberg's last match and hopes that it's Bill's last match. And then he moves on to Shawn Michaels and also mocks Seth Rollins for getting attacked by Brock Lesnar. They have announced him versus The Miz for SummerSlam, calls Miz the Kardashian sister, and says that Miz isn't even the best wrestler in his house because he's more afraid of Maurice, and he's the best thing going today. He did everything but woo at the end of this.
He cut down 6 people here, like a bunch of different.
He's got 6 programs going on. He's good for the next year after this promo, including Maurice.
That's right. So the Miz match is official at SummerSlam.
They've announced The Miz for SummerSlam. They have announced it.
Okay. Well, something like I had a thought watching this Shawn Michaels thing and how they can, they're treating like an attack on Shawn like it's like him putting his hands on some sort of deity. And I just watched that angle again, and I feel like it would have been way more effective if he attacked somebody who's actually retired and physically incapable. Somebody like a Mick Foley who, I think when Bray Wyatt did the mandible claw, I thought that was way more effective. But Shawn, because we just saw him wrestle, I don't really get that same sense of outrage that I think I'm supposed to. But then I start thinking about all the limitations that they must have had recently for that Raw reunion show, and it made me wonder if this whole role that Shawn had might have been originally reserved for somebody else. And Shawn being one of the few legends who have clearance, perhaps he had to step in. I don't know, but to me, it would kind of explain the strangeness of having Shawn here, especially, I don't know if they have any intention of building to that Ziggler-Shawn match.
It's a great point you bring up that maybe, I don't know if maybe Michaels was just by default. It's like, okay, you're one guy that's cleared to do physicality, and we can't do whoever, pick your legend that may not have been able to do anything. But the match that they are promoting is Ziggler and The Miz, but I think that there's too much being hinted at here to expect that to just be the match. So we'll see what happens. Ember Moon is in the locker room and meets with Bayley. They're teaming up tonight. This was another thing, was that over the weekend, Bayley was doing all these promos on Twitter and stuff, wanting to challenge Trish Stratus and offering her a title match. And
was she not challenging everybody in the locker room? Or
she did specific promos about Trish Stratus, including a video promo saying that she wanted to defend the title against Trish Stratus. And I don't know what that was supposed to be leading to, but there was nothing mentioned about it on this show. But that promo isn't happening for, you would think, no reason, but I don't know. It was just, there was nothing here. So maybe Bayley was going to at some point be involved. I don't know, but it was kind of strange.
Do you think it's out of the question that she decided to do that on her own?
I would be very surprised. I don't think they're doing promos like that and on their own. But anyway, there was no reference to it on this show. She remembers how Ember gave her the eclipse last week and said, "Remember that you're in this position because I chose you to be my opponent at SummerSlam. And if you try to pull something, I am going to kill you.
Yeah. Or she said she'll regret it, is what she said.
Yes. Well, she was insinuating death. Then the next visual I was not prepared for on this show. I had to sit back. I was like, oh God, we're back.
I'm so happy for you, John, and our entire audience.
Oh, guys, I got up. I did a couple push-ups. I got my fingers ready. And I hit quotations. As I sit here, I can't help but think I'm different. And not in an aesthetic way. I feel different, talk different. My redemption lies in the blood of my soul. My salvation, my benediction lies within strive and the willingness of any man to pick a fight with me. And part of that salvation, this is a terrible run-on sentence, was had by a warrior, a true man, and I salute you, Mr. Cesaro. But how do I move on from here? How do I write the next chapters of my book? Because I find myself in my self-imposed prison, my purgatory, waiting here a little less patiently this time for anybody to catch on what it is that I'm trying to do for me. Dude, this was 122 words.
Wow.
He's back, and he's more long-winded than ever.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
This is a real long one, and I've typed them all out. This was definitely the longest. But, man, he's back in the room after all that.
You know, I'm really glad. I'm really glad the emergence of Aleister Black out of that room did not mean the end of that room and the end of this style of promo. They're not really changing the character at all. This is who he is. This is how he will talk from now on, and I'm so grateful for it. If only so I could hear John Pollock's recaps of it.
Listen, if we get matches like he had with Cesaro every 4 weeks, and I got to put up with these promos, I'm fine with that trade-off.
Totally,
because that was a hell of a fucking match at that last pay-per-view.
I'll tell you what's a little strange though, okay? Because they've paired him with Cesaro, who's a heel. They're about to pair him with Sami Zayn, who's also a heel, which seems to suggest that Aleister Black is being pushed as a babyface. His in-ring certainly feels like it's a babyface style of match, but then these promos, like, they don't come across like a babyface promo to me. They don't come across cool. In fact, they just come across a bit more whiny. But maybe the intent is for you to just think that these are really cool and mysterious. They don't really.
When he mentioned that line about writing the next chapters of my book, I immediately thought of the authors. But I'm probably reading too much into that.
How would he face the authors of?
I mean, just seeing those three as maybe like a unit.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I mean, they've got nothing for AOP going on. It's like, I don't know, maybe you put Black as like this little cult leader or something, but I don't know. It was just a throwaway line. It could have meant nothing.
Why was there? Did you notice like at the end of the promo, there's like a little red light that like shone on the side of his face?
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like I don't know if that was just
maybe there's an assassin that's targeting him.
Yeah, or maybe he was shot this in Amsterdam.
Could have been. I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I don't know if it was just a special effect that they like the.
Was this like a laser pointer on him or like a different kind of light?
It was like a red splash of light just on the side of his face.
Oh, okay. I gotcha. Bayley and Ember Moon versus Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. So they got control of Bayley, kept her in the corner. They double teamed her for a while, and then they trapped her between the apron and the ring skirt as Bliss hit a baseball slide drop kick to her. They continued to double team her. She eventually made the hot tag to Ember Moon, who came in, hit the Eclipse onto Nikki Cross, but Cross rolled to the floor. Bliss then sent her into the post, Bayley, and hit the Twisted Bliss onto Moon. And Moon was the one thrown into the corner and then hit with the Twisted Bliss. So Alexa Bliss pins Ember Moon pretty much clean here. And Corey Graves demands that Alexa be added to the match at SummerSlam. And I guess she has quite the argument for it. And maybe this is going to be our first non-singles match at SummerSlam, a three-way.
Yeah, I guess, Alexa Bliss, I can't see as somebody who they really want to put on the show. The build leading up to this match between Ember and Bayley seems to have nothing to suggest that Alexa had, was originally intended to have any sort of involvement. She was simply not involved in the storyline. So if this is their way of trying to put her in there, okay, sure, whatever. Otherwise, having her pin Ember for no reason, I think would be just dumb. So
it makes no sense to pin the challenger going in. If anything, I think that it could have been Bliss pinning Bayley, because I don't think Ember needs to be losing going into this match. She needs all the help she can get. I would have had Bayley be the one, like Ember screws up or something, or Ember does something to cost Bayley after they had the agreement backstage, and Bayley could have ate the fall here more so than Moon, I would say.
What was Alexa's match last month? She fought Bayley, I guess.
No, she got replaced by Nikki Cross, didn't she?
Oh.
In whatever the match was.
Right.
Remember Nikki took her spot?
Yeah. I'm going to take your word for it. I don't really remember at this point.
Maybe you can ask her on Monday.
Oh, she's doing the call?
Alexa's the next one on deck. I guess maybe they should have set up her match before she does a media call.
Yeah.
To promote SummerSlam.
So. Yeah. Well, I guess.
Wouldn't that be helpful?
I guess she has to be on the show then. They might announce it during the weekend.
Maybe you're right. Maybe they'll announce it on the website. They probably will. Bayley then helps up Ember Moon and then hits her with the Bayley to belly.
Yeah. Honestly, I found like today's build for this particular program a little bit confusing. Not only do you kind of, you're giving Alexa
there's a lot going on.
Yeah, so there's one thing, and you're making the audience really just focus on Alexa after this. Then you have Bayley acting a little heelish too, attacking unprovoked. So I think it's going in a lot of different directions without really a clear focus, at least at this point in time.
And obviously this was retribution for Moon's actions last week, but kind of similar to Becky Lynch this week, like trying to kind of skirt the edge between these babyface characters, but also, I mean, kind of they're working with babyfaces and kind of doing certain heel actions as well that you can take either way. Yeah.
I think it works for Becky. I feel like it's not worked as well for Ember or Bayley.
Sarah Schreiber was with Sami Zayn. He's showing up to SmackDown to scope the competition, but all he sees is people complaining, and he thinks that Aleister Black is in pain. He sits in a dark room. He begs for people to fight. What he's really doing is begging for help. He has all this hype, and he knows he can't live up to it. And if he came out from under the bright lights and fought under the bright lights, the illusion would crumble. He needs to be beaten and exposed so the hype can end and he can begin to heal. And Sami Zayn is going to be that man to expose him at SummerSlam.
Yeah. I think for a match they, seemingly like just slapped together out of thin air. I thought Sami did a really good job here delivering this promo and giving us like at least a plausible reason why he wants to face Aleister Black.
It's kind of with the premise, though, that you're almost to forget that he just did the match with Cesaro. Like, this is almost a better promo before he has the first match back.
Sorry.
We just saw him. He's saying that he's scared to come and compete because then he's going to be exposed. I was like, no, we just saw him wrestle on the pay-per-view 2 weeks ago. He looked great. He just pinned Cesaro.
Maybe he means like he's scared to compete on a regular basis because he
doesn't want to be overexposed. He sees all these geeks on the show. He doesn't want to be lumped in with the 24/7 crowd. He's very smart. He'll only wrestle on pay-per-views. Yeah. It's a great deal if you can get it.
I suppose that would be, yeah, that's right. But, they want to put this match on SummerSlam because I think they want to feature Aleister Black on SummerSlam. But, man, like, wouldn't a match like this have been really nice to have, like, on, like, a Stomping Grounds or, I don't know, like, any of the 15 shows we might have had in between WrestleMania and SummerSlam? Like
Smackville.
But I'm looking at like the SummerSlam card with 15 matches, and I think a lot of them actually look good. But think about like if they had put half of those matches on some of these like really weak pay-per-views that took place that were headlined by like Lacey Evans and Baron Corbin matches throughout all this time. How much more tolerable I think a lot of those shows would have been. And you kind of, makes SummerSlam a little bit more palatable too.
They plugged the Big Show series, and then Kayla went to interview Daniel Bryan and Rowan with his career-altering announcement, and he just stared and walked off without saying a word.
Yeah, this was it. This was the announcement.
So they're just going to keep teasing what Daniel Bryan has to say until he has some big reveal. Jerry Lawler's in the ring for the King's Court. Big standing ovation for Lawler. He thanks Memphis and then introduces Trish Stratus. And he comes out. Corey Graves puts over her Instagram. Then Lawler put over her Instagram and noted that she was on vacation at her cottage and therefore she missed the Raw reunion, and mentions Kelly becoming the first female 24/7 champion. And Lawler said there were so many legends backstage and they were all talking about having one more match. So Trish, do you want to have one final match? And the crowd chants, one more match. And she says, WWE is in my blood, but I'm a mom now. And this just felt like it was, this was step one. The Charlotte promo last week should have been step two. And it just seemed like, why are you here, Trish? Like, why have you flown all the way to Memphis to talk about a theoretical match? It just felt really clunky at the beginning. Like, we all know what this is going towards. And it's just like we have to get through these pleasantries. But it's like, what is the premise of her being on this show as Jerry Lawler's invited guest? Like, was this segment just going to end if no one interrupted and say, I'm a mom now? Yeah, okay. See ya, Trish. Now you can go back on your vacation.
Or I think Charlotte should have directly made the challenge last week, and Trish simply comes out here to answer it on King's Court.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe like last week it was so clear like what they were directing you towards, and then announcing, well, Trish is coming here. Anyway, so Charlotte comes out and she did a great promo here. She says, how can the greatest female superstar of any era not be on SummerSlam? She made fun of Trish. She says, there's lots of performers here that are parents. It's just an excuse. And she makes the challenge to Trish at SummerSlam so that she can beat her in her hometown, and says that the women have evolved and they no longer need models shaking their assets. And Trish knows that she can't hang with her, tells her, get out of my ring, get in your minivan, and go back to changing diapers. I thought Charlotte was great here.
She had some great lines. Yeah. I don't love her like kind of over enunciating promo style, but I do like, concede that it gives her like a unique and confident voice. And I thought she really carried this segment well.
Trish says she respects Charlotte, but right now you're being a bitch. And there would be no trail for her to blaze without her, Lita, Jazz, Jacqueline, Ivory, and Beth Phoenix. And Charlotte, you should know this. To be the woman, you've got to beat the woman. And she accepts the match.
Mm-hmm. I thought this was good.
I like Trish's response at the end. I just thought the premise of the build-up at the beginning was just a little awkward. It was also like, Trish's, have you ever thought of having one last match? It's like, she's been around. Like, she's been doing matches over the last year. But anyway, it was well done by the end of it.
She hasn't had a singles match.
Well, it's not like this is some crazy request. I mean, we've seen her in the ring.
She was scheduled for a singles match, but yeah, you're right. Yeah. I wonder if like a segment like this might have been originally intended for the reunion. Would have made a lot more sense for Trish to simply appear there, right?
Totally. Maybe that was a legit reason that she couldn't make the Raw reunion, because this would have been a good segment to do that on. There's a natural reason why Trish is on the show, as opposed to this where, why are you in Memphis? Just because.
Cottage season in Canada is sacred.
It is wonderful.
It's really difficult for people to give up, so I totally respect that from Trish.
Dude, that was Brett's reason. He was not showing up for the Raw reunion because the weather is beautiful in Calgary and he didn't want to miss it.
We don't get much
for him.
We don't get much of it, so we really can't leave. I did have my doubts about whether or not like Trish could have kind of pulled off like, I guess, the emotional type of promo that we haven't really seen from her in a very long time. I feel like last time even we saw her in a speaking role, it wasn't really required that she had to emote that much. So being out of it for so long, I mean, I'm sure it's kind of like starting from scratch again. But I thought she sounded great here with the few lines that she had. It was a well-written promo with good lines. The line about her, about there being no trail to blaze without her and her compatriots, I thought was really good. I also loved the to be the woman, you got to beat the woman line. And I thought Trish's delivery was really strong. So by the end of it, it had the feel of a big attraction. This was a good segment.
Feels like a special match for SummerSlam. It's the right place to do it. I think I think Trish gets a lot of attention in Toronto, and I'm curious to see like how much media she gets onto here in Toronto to push the show. And I think ultimately it's going to be a match people are into. It'll feel special, and Charlotte probably gets a great win coming out of this. And I think it could be really well done. I think this is probably going to be one of the. I don't think it's going to be the best match on the show, but I think
it'll be a hot match.
I think so too. I think this is going to get over 100%. The OC are backstage. They refer to Charlotte as a good sister, and then they talk about how many times.
So is she in the OC now?
I guess so. The original Charlotte.
Good Charlotte.
Good Charlotte. Yes. She's. AJ asks how many times he's got to beat up Ricochet. They do their clunky catchphrase, the original, the only, the OC, and they plug AJ and Kofi tonight.
Mm-hmm. Are you? Do you have different? Any further opinions about the name, the OC?
It's still a weird one for me.
Yeah.
Do you like it?
Well, it's brief. It's easy to say. I think gradually I'll get the song out of my head. But for now, whatever.
Firefly Funhouse segment. Ramblin' Rabbit is Finn Balor's biggest fan. They mixed in some highlights here, but Balor made a big mistake because now the Fiend is unleashed, and they showed shots of Bray taking out Mick Foley, and then Bray appears in the Firefly Funhouse with this creepy music, and he does this maniacal laugh, and watching this, I guarantee you this guy was influenced by the heel Doink. Because it was like uncanny, like the laughter and playing like this kid's character. I've never put them together before, but it really hit me watching this, like the connection to Doink, like this clown that you knew was evil on the inside. And the Doink character, it was really goofy, but the heel version of it was like really well played.
I think when it originally started, it was really not that goofy. Like it was scary.
Like. But he beat the shit out of Crush with that fake arm. That was a heavy duty angle in '92.
For sure,
they did that.
I'm really I would be curious to know if that was actually an influence, or I'm sure like he could have taken the influence from a lot of different sources as well. But we wondered if the end of the Firefly Funhouse segments would have if they would have ended with I guess his debut, and they haven't. Like it seems like. Backstage, these are going to replace Bray's old darkroom promos. So he's
thank God
given up the rent to Aleister Black.
Aleister Black
moved in, and Bray has instead moved into the Firefly Funhouse, which is a way nicer place. These aren't produced as like the same way as like the ones that we saw in the past. This was likely set up backstage at TV. They're produced a lot quicker, probably without as many elements. But they serve a purpose. They're a lot more visual than his old promos, and they remind you of whatever program he's got going on.
Yeah, I think that they've done such a great job with these so far. Mm-hmm. It's revived this guy's entire career.
Yeah,
I think he's been great. These segments have been great. And
we haven't seen the match yet. I think a lot of it depends on his in-ring performance. Because if it's like the Fiend's really cool. But if it's like a 20-minute match that's just boring, it could kill the character.
Won't be.
Yeah, well,
it won't be.
We'll see. Like, how do you?
I think it should be short. You're right.
Yeah. How do they incorporate the lights and all that stuff? Because right now it's still so mysterious. It's like the same thing with the demon. Like when we're just talking about the entrance. Yeah, the demon's really cool, but once the lights are on and the match is there, how do they make it seem special? How do they make it seem as mysterious?
They recap the Lesnar attack on Rollins, and they don't have a medical update on Seth Rollins because he has requested no details be released. He's playing the HIPAA card. No news about his health. And this was the best. So the announcers start to theorize, well, what if this means Seth can't compete at SummerSlam? And then they segue, one person that would know is Seth Rollins' girlfriend, Becky Lynch. And she's got a match at SummerSlam against Natalya. Like, dude, they are doing goddamn, like,
it's got to be
they are stretching to just try and force this label in there. Like, it's so unnecessary. Like, they're clearly doing this stuff just
to purposely annoy her,
beat you over the head with it. I don't know. But
like this was
this was so unnecessary. It wasn't even the plug like she's coming up next. It was just a lone matchup board for SummerSlam to remind you of this match. Like it wasn't even we're going through the SummerSlam card. It was a non sequitur on the show.
Totally, yeah. I don't know. If I were them,
masters of subtlety.
If I were them, I would like just break up, tell them we broke up, and then continue seeing each other privately. Just so that they could stop, embarrassing us. It's like you telling your parents, "Oh, I'm dating so and so," and then they're like, "Hey," like your parents at every instance when they see your family members and their friends. "Oh, my son, this is my son and his girlfriend. Aren't they cute?" But except it's on a national stage. I'm sure they don't like this at all. Well, we know they don't like this.
Dolph Ziggler, Finn Balor. Ziggler came out and Phillips said, "I can't believe that stunt that Dolph pulled coming out to Shawn Michaels' music last night." Just disgusting.
Yeah, it's
on the same show where Seth Rollins was nearly murdered. It was Dolph Ziggler coming out to Shawn's music that raised the ire of Tom Phillips.
I mean, like I said, it's like Shawn all of a sudden, like in 1 week, is like supposed to be some type of untouchable deity that you're not supposed to say the name of. You're not supposed to, maybe dress up as or even walk out to the music to.
Listen, I don't know one way or the other, but I think your theory is pretty sound that Shawn was probably a stand-in for somebody.
I wonder who the stand-in would have been if that's the case,
And would they have had a connection to Goldberg?
Man, if it was Austin, like if it was Austin getting attacked, I mean, I don't know if Austin would go for it, but
I can't imagine Austin would have been put in that role with Dolph Ziggler.
Right.
I just can't see that happen.
Yeah, I probably can't see it either.
And who knows with Austin, like seriously with Austin, like it's like he had spinal stenosis. I don't know if he would be a guy that would be cleared to under their system. Mm-hmm. Like we know Edge isn't taking anything, and it's pretty similar.
I guess I'm trying to think of somebody who's like beloved and like to the point where you would buy that Finn Balor would be so outraged that Dolph Ziggler attacked this guy. And Seth Rollins.
Mick Foley's like, guys, I can only do so many angles. I mean, pick your guy. I can't do them all.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like
Sid. Man, Balor getting revenge for Sid. Rollins getting a revenge for Sid. I think that'd be great. And
Sid versus Dolph at SummerSlam headline.
Getting to hear Sid's music again, like Dolph Ziggler coming to Sid's music, that'd be worth it alone.
Could you imagine Dolph coming out to Sid's music with the vest and all the water over his head and he's just blinking incessantly?
I just want to see Dolph try a Sid loud, quiet, loud promo.
Oh my God, this is awesome. Yeah. This would be so great. This is what I want to see on the next Miz and Mrs. when Dolph is on. So Balor avoids the famous early. Ziggler hits one for a 2 count. Ziggler calls for the sweet chin music. It's cut off with the sling blade and then foot stomp. Clothesline Ziggler to the floor. The lights go out. One thing really noticeable, when the lights go out, this whole arena started buzzing. They knew what it meant, and I think they were really into the Bray character. Mm-hmm. He walks out with the mask on, but then the lights go out again, and when the lights appear, Bray has disappeared. Balor's distracted, eats the sweet chin music, and Ziggler wins in 3 minutes. This was a rare distraction finish. I didn't mind that much because of where it's going. I think the crowd really got into Bray's character more so than I thought, just from the lights going out. I didn't love this, but I didn't hate it like I would typically.
I completely agree with you. You know, it was a distraction finish that I did not dislike at all. I think unlike, seeing unlike hearing a person's entrance music or seeing like something on a screen, like this Fiend has been built up so well to be so scary and so mysterious that I think all of us...
You should be distracted. Yeah. You should be thrown completely off because he's this maniac.
It's also the lights going out. You're hearing these weird noises. Like, I don't know how much more of a distraction it could be. So, the finish I also enjoyed too. Puts the heat on the Fiend, builds up Ziggler's own credibility for whatever SummerSlam match he's got going on. The match was really not much, but I thought it was successful in building up both programs.
Then we had Shinsuke Nakamura and Ali. No mention of their Smackville match on the weekend.
Yeah, no mention of Smackville at all.
It didn't even exist. Which I think tells you when they do these specials, like that's the priority. You should put them in. I mean, if you get a kick out of watching WWE house show matches, great. But they're non-canon. They mean, they're just it's matches. That's it. Very quick match here. They had to like race through this. Ali came out of the gate with a drop kick and a suicide dive, I think within 5 seconds of the match. Then there's a sidestep, and Ali goes into the corner. He comes back with the rolling facebuster, but then gets pulled off of the turnbuckle. The Kinshasa gets stopped by an Ali super kick. He sets him up into the corner, and he goes up to the top, and I've never really thought of this, but Ali has not been on TV like super prevalently over the last little while. But him going up to do a 450 now, it feels less impressive when you got the guy doing the 630 on the other show.
I suppose so. I still think it's pretty special, but I can see what you mean. We've also seen it more, but it's still cool. I think a shooting star press is still cool.
I think the inverted 450 is pretty cool.
Right.
But he just does here he was just doing the regular 450.
Right.
Then he ducks another Kinshasa, tries for the roll-up, then takes a DDT. Nakamura goes for yet another Kinshasa, and Ali gets out of the way and rolls up Shinsuke Nakamura, does his best Toru Yano here, and wins in 2 minutes and 18 seconds. All that I just went through, 2 minutes and 18 seconds. So Ali gets the win in the non-title match and throw another log onto the fire for this never-ending SummerSlam bonfire that we may be getting on August 11th.
They have a lot of programs to build up in a short amount of time, and that means short matches to get to those programs.
And probably short matches to get through them at SummerSlam.
Probably.
Like this ain't getting a lot of time at SummerSlam would be my guess.
Yeah, I don't see it. So maybe Smackville is the match that you guys need to go back to watch. Last week it did not seem apparent that they were going back to this program at all. Like you had Ali cutting a promo about wanting to be a world champion, and Nakamura was off doing something else, wasn't he? Who was Nakamura targeting last week? Was it?
It escapes me right now.
Whatever. But yeah, picking this back up, sure, why not?
Yeah, I almost like they got so many programs going on, and I feel most of them are all going to end up on this show. I wouldn't mind like just hold off on some of them. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. It just seems like it's going to be tons of matches, and inevitably stuff gets cut.
Oh, it was Apollo Crews. It was like Nakamura Kinshasa-ing Apollo Crews multiple times, and Woods and Biggie were asking where his friends were.
That's right. And then he pinned Crews last week. Yeah. Right.
So I guess that was not meant to be anything.
That was it. That was it for Apollo. Then they go to this pre-produced feature called Inside the Mind of the Viper. This would have been really funny in the mid-2000s when this guy was a maniac. He says it all started in 2009, him and Kofi. And by that time, Randy had already been the Intercontinental World WWE Champion, listed off all the top names he had faced, won the Royal Rumble, main evented WrestleMania, and all he had to do was be himself. Kofi Kingston did not have that luxury. And all of this is supported with B-roll here. He had to pretend to have a Jamaican accent and be the fun guy. And somewhere, No Way Jose was watching this and thinking, one day. And then I thought this was so awesome. Yeah. They used the famous stupid clip of Randy chastising Kofi in the middle of one of their matches. I thought this was awesome.
I mean, that clip, the stupid thing, has really kind of grown in wrestling internet lore ever since it happened way back when. And
then grew when Kofi did it to Randy not all that long ago as like a joke on it. Yeah.
It was rekindled here. And I mean, Orton and the writers in this particular, like I was wondering when they initially kind of hinted at this program how much they would like bring back the past, in particular things like this. They're diving right into that history, including I would consider a pretty memeable or like a pretty popular, I think, little subtle thing that
This was really smart to it even if you don't know the context,
it works.
It's just a throwaway line in here of this guy just calling the guy stupid. Like, it works fine. And if you know the backstory, it's that much more rewarding.
Can you explain
thought of this?
Can you explain the backstory briefly for somebody who
Kofi like blew a spot in a match, and it was Randy just having a tantrum in the ring, calling him stupid.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact spot.
The clip's up there.
Yeah, you can find it very easily. I mean, this is a really famous clip. But yeah, whoever thought of this, I thought, great idea to incorporate this. I thought it was really, really smart. And then we cut to Randy, who's saying, Kofi Kingston is stupid for thinking he can hang with me.
Okay, the best line, though, he says, when you piss me off, you get sent right to the bottom of the ladder, which has multiple meanings. And, again, like, it's a line that makes very subtle reference to the reality of the situation, or at least what the internet thinks is the reality of the situation, that Kofi, or that Randy Orton, after, this Kofi Kingston push, decided to bury Randy Orton politically backstage. But it also, like, works in kayfabe. When you piss me off, you get sent right back to the bottom of the ladder. Like, because I beat you, and you have to start your career back from the bottom again. So I love that line. I loved all this stuff.
Somewhere Mr. Kennedy could have popped up here when he
a few people
dumped Randy on his shoulder. It was not Randy was not happy about that one either, and justified as well too. So he goes over, injuring Ali with the stomp, and then Kofi getting his spot and gained that chance because of him. Kofi Mania is because of him, and it's based off of a fluke and luck. So I like this feature a lot. I thought this was great. Yeah. This is all this program needed on this show. Randy's involvement, just a nice pre-produced package. And I'm looking forward to the match, too. I think they're going to have a really good match at SummerSlam as well.
I think the audience will be really hot because of packages like this. Hopefully in ring it delivers. But this was an excellent video package. It was an excellent story that was told. Randy Orton is so good here. To me, like, when given the chance, he can be your, like, Thanos-like level of villain. The boss who is, like, the boss's boss. That slow-talking, kind of methodical, like, totally unpredictable type of talking. And I think for Kofi, it's a huge step up in, like, adversary from the likes of, like, Dolph Ziggler and Kevin Owens. And then, like, after this segment, this incredible video, they crossfade right to Kofi Kingston backstage, continuing to do goofy shit, swiveling his hips with the New Day, with pancake stuffed down his pants. And to me, like, it signals that I would love if Orton beats Kofi, and that it would force Kofi to make a major character shift, to finally get rid of the silliness and evolve to his next form. Because to me, the contrast here between, like, Orton and how serious he was, and Kofi swiveling his hips with pancakes, was way more apparent.
I like it. I think that there's something to be said of, like, Kofi in a chase position, kind of what we talked about. If had Lesnar cashed in on Kofi, Randy, I think Randy, there's great utilization of Randy Orton. I think he gets a lot of criticism, and I think some of it is unfair, because I think when he is really dialed in, I think he's a really effective heel, and I expect that these two should have a pretty good match as well on top of it. And you could progress this. I hope this isn't just a 3-week program. I hope they extend it.
Yeah, I think you can carry it all the way till SummerSlam or Survivor Series.
Kayla was with the New Day, as you mentioned, and Woods mentions it's Happy Golden Girls Day. And E and Woods took turns doing promos, and it ended with Kofi saying SmackDown is no longer the house that AJ built, but the palace of positivity.
Yes.
So, t-shirt. Kofi Kingston, AJ Styles, non-title. We've got the OC out there. We've got the New Day out there. Starts off, Kingston hits a spinning drop kick off the turnbuckle. Styles then ducked the Trouble in Paradise very early on, and then a clothesline sends AJ to the floor, and as Kingston goes for the dive, Anderson and Gallows get in the way, and Styles drills Kofi with a knee to the face off the apron and sends him into the timekeeper's area as we go through the commercial. Throughout the night, we should mention that they've been promoting that Roman Reigns will announce his SummerSlam challenge, and we cut to the back, and Kayla is waiting in the interview area for Roman Reigns as we've got like 6 minutes left in the show. Kingston hits a tornado DDT off the top. He's fighting back. Trouble in Paradise gets blocked. AJ attempted a Ushigoroshi, but then Kofi lands on his feet, hits the SOS, only gets a 2 count, and then there's a splash onto the back, and as Styles looks to be done, Gallows pulls him to the floor. New Day confronts Gallows and Anderson. Styles hits a forearm strike to Kofi from the floor. They continue to fight. Kofi nails everyone with a trust fall, and then as he goes for a springboard into the ring, he's caught on the shoulders of AJ for the Ushigoroshi while the teammates are all brawling on the floor. And as AJ goes for the phenomenal forearm, Kofi hits him with a Trouble in Paradise in midair, pinning AJ. Crowd really popped for the finish here.
Yeah. Really cool.
And AJ
spot.
takes the fall. Yeah, it was a very cool finish. I almost think like, man, that could have been saved for something. But that was our TV main event tonight.
I thought a really hot crowd, satisfying main event to close the show. AJ taking the pinfall, maybe not, anybody's first choice. I don't really think it hurts him that much though. It's still AJ Styles. They had no time here. Like there were 2 minutes left in the broadcast before?
It was like you were really cutting it thin here to time this out to do the final angle.
Yeah. The match was fine.
Do you see them doing something with both, because we have both sets of tag champions here on the floor. Do you see it being something involving both sets of tag champions? They've teased a bunch of stuff now because
Usos.
You got Gallows and Anderson with the Usos and Revival on Raw. They're doing stuff with the New Day here. So I don't know what it's going towards. If it's going to be some giant cluster with all the tag teams, I don't know. It's just
something tells me that this was maybe just done for the sake of a TV main event and not necessarily something to lead to a bigger program. I would tend to think like the tag teams would go with more like the tag team challengers from their own shows. But in the case of the New Day, I don't even think they would be on the show.
They don't even have opponents like set up. Like maybe they're just going to be in Kofi's corner or something.
It's fine.
Yeah, you don't need all the tag titles to be defended on this show. I'm fine with that. So Kayla says that Roman Reigns is on his way as the countdown is on to the show going off the air. And he is showing just casually walking backstage towards the interview area. And you knew trouble was a brewing way when we had multiple camera cuts of Roman walking. And he's walking by as this giant metal truss falls down onto Roman. And we get the perspective of the thing falling onto Roman, and then Roman flat on his back underneath this thing. It was the goofiest thing you've ever seen.
Oh,
Kayla's
man. Totally different from the way they presented the Lashley Strowman stunt with the LED board.
Yeah.
Like where that was like, that was one specific angle that they shot it from, and then they cut to a wide angle that was like not focused on anything at all. Here you caught this stunt, this supposedly surprise thing nobody saw coming from like 5 different angles.
Everyone's going crazy. It's like you've got the camera down on the floor to just see everyone running. And this was weird. It's like it's fallen onto him. Everyone's concerned. Roman is out of harm's way in no time. He's just up. He's completely fine. And then you hear the crowd chanting Joe. And I don't think they were chanting for Joe Anawahi here. And they want to check on him. Roman doesn't want to be checked on. And he just walks off. And that's how the show ended. I thought this was like a really weird ending to the show. I really liked this episode of SmackDown, but this was like a really strange ending, and I didn't really like it at all.
I mean, it was set up to be a really big surprising moment and something to set up a mystery for the coming week. And
coming week, like they've got to settle this next week.
They do, yeah. Who do you? Any guesses? Like this audience seems to think it's Samoa Joe. I feel like we just saw that. He beat Joe clean, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel that would be too obvious. And then, I mean, go through who are your main guys that you could see Roman working with. They've done Drew McIntyre. They've done Elias. The major people unaccounted for are Daniel Bryan and Joe. Like that to me is kind of your short list of people that you could envision working with Roman, unless it's someone completely different.
Yeah. Zayn and Black are taken up right now.
They're taken up.
Well, audience, what do you think? Let us know.
That was SmackDown. As I said, I overall, I really liked this show. I thought that there was a lot that they had on this show. It moved very well. And I kind of liked off the top, like they listed all the stuff that was planned for the show, and it was all, relatively important stuff, and the build for SummerSlam. It's a lot of build for SummerSlam because that card is really starting to mount. But what did you feel about the show?
I liked SmackDown as well. Again, like I think the difference in the commercial break system, lifting that whole edict has really helped the in-ring quality of these shows. I also think that they managed to build a good number of programs towards SummerSlam. So for the most part, I think their SummerSlam looks to be in good shape with some like pretty like good logical storytelling.
All right. Well, that was SmackDown.
Go to the feedback.
Yes, let's check out the feedback and see what everyone had to say about this show. We had like a 6.4, I think, for Raw, if I'm not mistaken. I think this is going to top it. That'd be my guess. A 5. This did not.
Yeah.
Not as a. I wonder if that's a residual effect of the closing angle, or we'll find out when we read these comments. I think you and I like this show more than most on the forum. Paul from New Jersey writes, I actually liked Shane's promo. Funny how he came on the show to announce he wouldn't be on the show. KO and McIntyre was excellent, and I'm not angry at the clean loss for Drew. Build him up later. Charlotte and Trish sounded great. Looking forward to that match. At about 8:45 Eastern, with the countless preview of upcoming segments, I knew there was no friggin' way the women's tag champions were making the show. Weren't Sonya and Mandy supposed to challenge for the championships? Yes, we went over that. So that is, they at least addressed it on the website, but yeah, clearly got scrapped.
Andrew from Cape Breton says, So I know there has been a problem with SmackDown for months where things are announced and then changed, and tonight may have been the worst example. It shows how little they value the show, and it's at the point where it's foolish to plan anything for SmackDown week to week. That being said, they had the best segment between both Raw and SmackDown with Randy Orton's promo on Kofi Kingston. Just with promos, Orton and Kingston now have the best built match towards SummerSlam. Everything else was okay tonight. Week-to-week storytelling is going to be a little rough, but hopefully this trend ends when they're forced to get the numbers on Fox. 4 out of 10.
Jay from Colorado. So I read earlier that Vince frantically rewrote the show today, and the ending of the show definitely reflected that. It was so out of place and awkward, it just completely threw off the vibe. I kept thinking those EMTs were going to jump Roman, and then it just ended. Like, what was that? Cliffhangers, for the purpose of cliffhangers, never work out well. I hope they have a plan for this. Even Roman looked confused.
We go to Brandon from Oshawa finally, who says, forget who shot JR. The big new mystery is who tried to murder Roman Reigns. I really hope they have a plan for this. Maybe have multiple attempts at taking him out. Multiple suspicious people. I love the Aleister Black mystery on NXT, and it's time for the main roster to have a good mystery. Well,
I don't think you're going to get the long build-up of that Aleister Black had. I think this is going to be something that's revealed next week because Roman Reigns needs an opponent for SummerSlam, and we have 2 shows left.
Yeah.
So maybe you'll get a night-to-night mystery. And really, like, what was the consequence of this all? The guy was fine and walked away from it. Like, there wasn't a whole lot of sympathy to it.
I think the idea is that they didn't want something as severe enough to take him out for next week's show because he has to be there probably on Monday. Really?
Like Seth Rollins?
Well, we'll see about Rollins, right? I don't think Rollins should wrestle at all. I barely think he should even appear, but he needs to appear. So, I think with Roman, they want to avoid that criticism when he does inevitably appear on Monday. The act was heinous, yet he does not suffer the consequences, but he still wants to get revenge.
All right. I did mention on Monday that I was going to try and listen to the Steve Austin podcast with Hulk Hogan, and I did listen to the show. Really no news coming out of it. I would say if you want to just hear Hulk Hogan tell Hogan stories, that's what it is. I think you can take some of it with a grain of salt. I'm sure there's truth in there as well, but it's also Hulk Hogan that I think, you know what you're getting with Hulk Hogan as well.
So they did not get into any of the controversies of his life?
Nothing like that, no. So it really wasn't like a news interview. It was more so just what was it like working with this guy? I mean, Austin's a very good interviewer, and Hogan loves to talk, and the varying degree of truthfulness is probably to be disputed because this is Hulk Hogan after all.
That's disappointing because I feel like, Austin, to me, like as an interviewer, has kind of built up a reputation for somebody who can kind of like dig through the dirt, or not to dig out the dirt, but to like, cut the bullshit and to like get to the heart of the matter that I think a lot of people are actually interested in. The fact that we didn't get that seems like a wasted opportunity.
I'm just looking at my notes here. Hogan went over his injuries, having his right knee scoped 4 times, his left knee scoped 4 times. Then he had both knees replaced, both hips replaced, 9 back surgeries, and that's what officially ended his career. And now he's starting to get arthritis. But then he ended it by saying, "But I'm doing good."
Yeah, I guess all things considered.
He told some wild stories, including that he's recently had some stem cell surgeries, and he had been going down to Mexico for these surgeries. And he casually mentions that he nearly died on the table in Mexico doing one of these because the cells are soaked in this thing called DMSO, this substance. And it turns out Hogan's allergic to DMSO, and said that he nearly died. So now he does these stem cell surgeries in Tampa.
Jeez.
Yes. He talked a lot about breaking into the business, who influenced him. He's very open about the fact he stole from a lot of people to come up with like the Hulk up and the ear to the crowd and lots of stuff like that. I mean, he gives a lot of credit, and I think it's underappreciated. Like, this guy was clearly a wrestling fan and followed a lot of these guys. Like, you can certainly, that comes through in all of this. He talks about maybe the most newsworthy thing was that Austin admitted that one of the biggest regrets of his career is not sitting down with Hogan when he came back to the WWF and the two of them having the match, because it would have been such a big match to do around 2002. And the fact was, like, that Austin was the pick to do the WrestleMania match and wasn't interested, and it was The Rock that got the match, and it turned out to be an enormous success. But Austin says his 2 biggest regrets are walking out that year during the whole Lesnar thing and not eventually doing the match with Hogan, because he physically could have done it, and they probably should have done the match because it would have been really big.
Interesting. Like, to think about that, like, the crowd would have still, like, imagine, okay, if it was Austin at WrestleMania 18 instead of Rock, the crowd would have still, like, went nuts for Hogan. Do you think that they would have booed Austin like they booed The Rock?
I don't think it would have been as one-sided as it was that night at the Skydome. I think that Austin would have had. I don't think Austin would have been booed to the degree that the Rock was. Like, the Rock, you could see, like, there was that easy ability. Like, here's the younger guy, and like, Hogan is just a legendary figure. I don't know if Austin would have got it as much. And who's to say if Austin and Hogan necessarily would have had the same dynamic Hogan and Rock did that night? Mm-hmm. Like, it was so much. It really wasn't the match. It was the crowd reacting to these larger-than-life stars. I feel Austin and Hogan would have had that, but it was, it was those two. It was a big what-if at the time. Like, that would have been a big match. And I've always said, like, Austin's last match was WrestleMania 19. The next night, Goldberg debuts. It's like they literally missed each other by one day. Yeah. And just had you been able to do that match at that WrestleMania, Goldberg and Austin, I think that would have been just so huge.
Yeah, a lot of what ifs. Well, I mean, one of those guys is still active.
That's true. Yeah, one of them can still technically wrestle. So that will bring in a close to the show. But Way and I will be back on Wednesday with Ask Away for all members of the Post Wrestling Cafe, so you can tune into that. Check that out. Thursday, we're live with the Cafe Hangout. Rich Craich is going to be joining us from Voices of Wrestling to chat all the latest news involving the G1, and we'll have a G1 show out on Thursday as well, following the show in Fukuoka.
Yeah, as well, up next on Thursday, Cruel Summer this weekend, in the latest edition of the Rocky Maivia Picture Show with Marcus Vanderberg, Mike Mills, talking about Gridiron Gang with Nate Milton. That's up on the Post Wrestling feed as well, which is now blazing fast, super fast, so fast you blink and you'll miss the download. It's just like, it's that blazing fast. So go check it out.
Yes, and I highly recommend the Gridiron Gang review. I really enjoyed that. I listened to that on Saturday. It was great.
Have you seen the movie?
I haven't seen the movie, so I was totally going based on them. The reaction when they discuss like this heart to heart that Dwayne Johnson's character in the movie has with one of the football players. And you contrast Mike's reaction as a father to Marcus's reaction, who has not had his child yet. Unbelievable. It was just awesome. Two contrasting emotions and reactions to this heart-to-heart speech. So
Lovely.
Check that out. It's great stuff. Nate does a great job every month with that show, so give him some love. All right. Thank you to everyone, and we will speak with you later on this week.